All right, we saw some boom, and we saw just a little bust from Josh Allen earlier in the hour, but we have concluded there's a ton of potential there. He could end up being a great NFL quarterback, but that has inspired today's draft on Pro Football Talk Live. The biggest boom or bust players for 2020, Chris Simms. You have the trivia question for me. I would like to go boom. Chances are I'll go bust. Let's see what you got. I know I'm going to get it wrong, but let's see what you got.
No, you got a chance today. I think you really do. Here we go. Josh Allen had the third most rushing yards of any QB last season. Lamar Jackson was obviously first. We know that. Who was sandwiched in between them? Who was the quarterback with the second most rushing yards behind Lamar in front of Josh Allen?
Ooh, see, I want to say Kyler Murray, but I think if I recall correctly, he didn't. What? Should I say Kyler Murray? What are you trying to do to me, Simms? Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I was trying to do that so you would think like, oh, no, it must not be Kyler Murray. It's got to be somebody else. Darn it. I know. But when you really start to think about it, you just go, yeah, who else would even be there in that conversation, right? So it's like you almost have to pick Kyler Murray.
Yeah, it ain't going to be Matt Ryan.
Right.
But you just, I thought there was maybe like some curveball was going to surprise me that I don't know. But Kyler Murray didn't run as much as we thought he was going to. And that just speaks to the skill of Kyler Murray. Even when he doesn't run as much as you think he's going to, he's still second in the league in rushing, which that guy, he's not a candidate for boom or bust. For me, he is all boom, no bust. Kyler Murray's going to be incredible this year. So that is not my first pick. Look, the most obvious one to me, and it doesn't have to be a young player, right? It can be anybody. Boom or bust. Right. This is the year we find out what the guy is, right? Your guy, Odell Beckham Jr. This is the boom or bust year. This is the year we find out. Is he the 2014 Odell Beckham Jr. or is he done? Is he destined to just be, around 1,000-yard-a-year guy, but not that game breaker that is going to make people go ooh and ah and think that he's the best receiver in the league and potentially one of the best of all time? This is the year we find out which way OBJ is going to go. You like that one, don't you?
Well, listen, I'm not going to argue it. I mean, I know what you're saying. Like, yeah, Odell Beckham Jr. has set a standard for himself where bust is like 1,000 yards receiving now. I mean, basically. So you're right. And, of course, he's, other than Tom Brady, the most popular player in our sport still, even with being on some underwhelming teams here for the last few years. And it's a huge year in Cleveland, as we both know. I mean, you could probably put Baker Mayfield in this conversation a little bit for that type of conversation as well. But I'm with you, and I'm expecting big things from OBJ this year. It's very quiet offseason. He's been talking about his working hard and coming back to have a huge year. So I would be shocked if it's not boom. I think it's going to be boom all the way. All right,
But there's no middle ground. That's the key. There's no middle ground. He's going to be perceived as a tremendous success or an abject failure. It's not going to be, okay, he was just fine this year. So I think that's how we define this, and I think it's right on the money.
I agree.
Right.
But I don't always think that's fair either. Again, I think a lot of people look at last year and go, it was a bust. And I want to go, no, it was 1,000 yards receiving. That's crazy. It wasn't a bust. It just wasn't what we wanted it to be or what we expected it to be. So, but I'm with you. A huge year there. All right. I'm going with the older guy, too. In fact, I'm going much older. All right. I'm going with Phillip Rivers. I think that's a big boom or bust prospect right there. If we were sitting here in January and you go, hey, the Colts are the number 2 seed in the AFC, I would go, I'm not shocked. That's a good roster. And Phillip Rivers had some, has shown the capabilities to be a really good quarterback still. But also, if we were sitting here and we went, the Colts went 7-9 and didn't make the playoffs, and Phillip Rivers was leading the league in interceptions or I wouldn't be shocked if that happened either. I would not. So, to me, the Phillip Rivers experiment is boom or bust. I could see it either being great or it's going to be underwhelming, and we go, hey, Phillip, great career. Now it's time to retire, and the Colts need to find a new quarterback.
Yeah, he was at the top of my list as well. I thought about making him the first pick because you're right. There is no, it's a pretty good year, Phillip. No, he's either going to be great with the Colts or we're going to be saying in mid-October, what in the hell were the Colts thinking when they signed this guy? So I agree with you on that. All right, next one for me. Another guy who, I think we're at the tipping point, and I think this is his last chance to convince his team that he's the guy to lead them into the future, and that's Jimmy G, your guy in San Francisco, right? They had the conversation about Tom Brady. You took it even farther than that with the things that you heard from multiple different sources and multiple different camps, that they really did take a close look at the possibility of trying to upgrade from Garoppolo to Brady. Garoppolo heard all that. They told him about all that. That's what GM John Lynch acknowledged. And look, hey, he's either going to shake from his psyche the fact that he was completely marginalized and undermined in the playoff games because they just ran the ball after they got freaked out by what should have been 3 interceptions against the Vikings before the middle of the third quarter and decided to just run the ball down Minnesota's throat. They hardly used him in the NFC Championship game. He had Emmanuel Sanders open and missed him in the Super Bowl. He's either going to respond to that and find a new level, or he's going to continue to do those kinds of things. And at some point, the 49ers are going to say, if we could just add a high-end quarterback to this team, we'd never lose a game.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Jimmy G was on my list, certainly. Do I look at it and think he's a little overly scrutinized? Yeah, I do, certainly. But I also understand it. I do. When you're talking about a team where, hey, they were really talented. We know that. And there were some big moments that were a little underwhelming by Jimmy Garoppolo. And, of course, didn't come through in the big moments. And, to your point, Mike, it did look like they had to manage him in the playoffs a little bit and be careful about what they did and didn't do with him. So I think this is a huge year for him, for his future. And, I think you look at the contract situation. This is the year the 49ers could get out of this, too, and really have no issue, too. So that adds to that conversation as well. Man. Okay, I think my next pick, I'm going to go with Gronk. Gronk is boom or bust to me. I just don't see, a little like Odell Beckham Jr., the expectations, of course, are very high, right? So bust is like, okay, yeah, it's a good year for a lot of tight ends, but not for the greatest tight end in the history of the sport. And, hey, let's not forget, he's taken a year off from football. And his last year playing football, it was only 682 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. So I could see this year being boom, 800 yards and 9 touchdowns, 10 touchdown catches. Or I could see, man, Gronk has lost a little bit of a step. He's banged up. He's having a hard time finding his niche within this offense. And it's like 400 or 500 yards receiving and just like 2 or 3 touchdowns. I wouldn't be shocked if it went either way. I don't think there's going to be much of a middle ground here.
And I'm going to disagree with you because I think this has the potential to be – well, but here's the thing. I think what we may see is perceived bust in the regular season, delayed boom in the postseason. When they didn't trade O.J. Howard or Cameron Brate, it occurred to me that, they're thinking almost – remember the 2018 season, his last year with the Patriots, keeping him healthy into the postseason is the key to winning in the postseason. So Brady's going to want 100% Gronk in January. We'll use O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. We've got all the weapons now. We don't need to use Gronk extensively during the regular season. As we get closer to the postseason, he gets into closer and closer into full football shape. That's when you unleash Gronk. So the numbers may not be there, but I think the performance will be there. The impact will be there down the stretch. All right, last one for me. Man, I got a lot on my list.
I know.
We've already done a quarterback. Let me go with a running back. We've got a receiver. We got a quarterback. I'm going to go with a running back. This is it for Le'Veon Bell. This is it. He's either the guy that he was in Pittsburgh or he's just not, and he'll be done with the Jets after this year, and he will be relegated to finding whatever he can on the open market next year, around $5-6 million a year at the absolute most. Le'Veon Bell has got to prove, and there's no middle ground. There's either going to be, this is our guy, and he's the guy he was in Pittsburgh. Anything short of that, and they're going to cut him after this year, and he's going to go into that churn of veteran running backs, just like with Devontae Freeman now, just kind of hanging around, just kind of waiting for the phone to ring and being offered amounts that are so far short of what they're used to making that they're going to refuse to take them.
Yeah, I think it's a huge year for Le'Veon Bell. Agreed. It was underwhelming last year, and I also don't know if the Jets did everything they could to really help him out or accentuate the things he can do and be successful with. I mean, there's no doubt about that. They've improved their offensive line, so that should help. And hopefully he'll be in better shape and football shape than he was a little early on there last year. Man, I got so many too. I'm not sure. All right, I'm going to quarterback again. I'm going with Matthew Stafford. And listen, hear me out. I don't expect bust, like bad play from Matthew Stafford. I just think it's a boom or bust year for either he stays in Detroit for the next 3 to 4 years or this is it. And I mean this as in totality. Like, hey, yeah, maybe he just plays average or a little above average and they want to move on to a new quarterback. Or he plays good and the team kind of fails and he just says, I've had it with this place. We've heard he's selling his house and he's going to go, damn, I'm out of here. I've had it. Detroit can't get it done and figure it out. I need to go play somewhere else. So I think it's a big boom or bust year as to the future of Matthew Stafford in Detroit. I think it's getting very close to have run its course there.
All right, and we got to go, but I had a lot of other names on my list. Tom Brady, Juju Smith-Schuster, Stephon Diggs, Sammy Watkins, Derek Carr. Twice I put Derek Carr on the list.
Brandon Cooks.
And my buddy Kirk Cousins goes on the list as well. Let's take a break. More PFT Live coming right after this.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.